Hello everyone. If you're looking for a lovely present that you can make someone, an East meets West crazy quilted Japanese style rice bag, you're in for a treat because this is going to be your video. I hope you enjoy it. I've got a lovely project for you today and I think it's one that you're going to really like. I've been seeing a lot of those beautiful square rice bags around, and it occurred to me that you didn't just have to do a Japanese style. So I am going to do a mashup of East meets West, and I'm going to do mine with crazy quilting. Good for using scraps and hopefully an enjoyable project. I have actually got a piece of old sheet, the bits that I use for backing my embroideries. I have just marked out the size that I want my bag to be finished. So I want each square to be 15 centimetres, but I'm going to differ in doing it with separate squares. So what I've actually gone and done is marked all 4 squares out, just with my disappearing pen, and then I've got a 1 centimetre gap. And then another 15 centimetre square and another gap and another one and another one. So I've got all 4 of my squares on one long piece of fabric. And I think this is just going to make it easier to do the crazy quilting. And so this is my seam allowance at the bottom and the seam allowance at the top. And I've just left the excess fabric on. For scraps, I've just gone and collected what I thought would be nice, just leftover fabric from projects. So with that, I've ironed the backing fabric just to make it easier to mark out my lovely squares. Well, you can be as random or as planned as you would like. And I decided I'd just plan a little bit so I could see what I was aiming for. This is also one of the times I would say it's definitely important to iron your patches because you want them to lie flat and you want to be able to see what they're going to do. I really like a scrappy look, but to start off I thought this would be lovely in the middle and just showcase the little bit of vintage embroidery. And so I'm going to start putting this patch on. I'm going to just check where it's going to be. I'm going to turn that over. And as long as I'm getting both of the fabrics, that's fine. I've got just grey sewing thread in my needle and I'm going to do this by hand. So I'm just going to go there. I'm going to do about 1/4 of an inch, maybe just over 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. I've started with a knot. I'm starting with a back stitch. And then I'm going to do what I call, well, it's a running back stitch. So I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, pull through, and then I do a back stitch. And it's quite a strong hand stitch. I'm not particularly trying to do tiny little stitches. It's not clothes. I just want to get these on, and I'm going to do 3 little overcasts to finish off. Cut my thread, and then what I am going to do on every single patch I put on, I'm going to open it up and I'm going to iron it. Because you need to keep everything lying flat. So in this way I'm going to put every patch on. I'm going to take that, right, you can see your line where your seam line is going to be. We just need to go over that. And I'm going to take that patch, I'm going to line it up on there. Pin if you want to. I think on these little things I'm not bothered about pinning. And I'm going to come right from here. So I've started with a back stitch and I'm going to running stitch this one on. And I just go, I don't actually think I need to do the back stitch, so I'm just going to running stitch it on. Because it's all going to be held down again with the embroidery. This style of patchwork can be so free and so designed however you work. Okay, second patch on. I'm going to bring my iron in I usually do trim the seams back, especially if you've gone over a big patch underneath. And with the iron, that's where I'm planning it. I'm going to turn it over and make sure I'm going to come right the way through there. And the beauty of having your drawn lines on is you can see where your seam lines are likely to be. And so I'm actually going to cut some of this excess off already, but I'm actually still going to leave quite an overlap. And just take some of the bulk off. I've still got more than I need. There's my seam line. So in this way I'm going to carry on and do each square. But the beauty of having it in a big long strip is that I can run my patches right over here if I want to. So on this one, I think I'm going to put that one on there, and I'm just going to run it over that line. I'm going to carry on putting patches on. I'm on to the next side now. You could absolutely do them as separate squares entirely, nothing wrong with that at all. It's just, this is the method that I'm doing. And so I'm going to layer up the next few, stitch them on until I get right to the end of my strip. And there's my strip. I'm just going to draw my lines on, I think, where I can see, in fact that's down the seam. I'll draw this one on. It's just for my own benefit, so I can see where the sides of my bags are. And now, ready for all the embellishing. And I think here's where I can use all those lovely threads that might not be useful anywhere else. So I might actually start with this bit, and you can do as much seam embellishment as you like, or as little as you like. There would be nothing wrong with finishing this bag off absolutely the way it is now, but I'm going to do some embroidery, and that's my next challenge. And I think for crazy quilting seam things, you don't have to have a plan in mind right from the very beginning. It's more that you build things up. You can start simple and then just build things together. And so I'm going to start here with normal herringbone. And herringbone is, you sort of stitch backwards to go forwards. It sounds funny, but I think I'll bring you first in. Let's see if I can get it centered on the camera. I'm just going to pick my work up. And what I mean by backwards to go forwards is I'm taking a stitch backwards here. And then I'm going to come forwards and take another stitch backwards. And because I'm doing crazy quilting, I am not even going to bother whether the stitches are even. I can take small ones, I can take big ones. It's up to you what you do, because you can be neat, you can be messy. It all adds. So I'm going to take a really big stitch there. Sometimes I'm going to go right through to my backing fabric, and sometimes I'll just do the front. I'm going to go right near the seam there, take a long one, and in this way you build things up. This variegated threads, variegated ribbons, they do a lot of work for you when you're stitching. So this type of work is just so nice. And if you've come here because you're looking at the crazy quilting, definitely go and have a look at my bird book playlist, because I've just been stitching my garden birds. And I don't have any garden birds that would have needed purple thread. Not in the UK, that's for sure. I'm going to do some lazy daisy, so I'm just going to take a decent stitch and put my thread around and do one, maybe do three in a little group, or maybe just two actually. Maybe that's it. And another one, pull through. This is really shiny. It's going to add a lovely shine. I thought I'd do this because I thought it was still time to do this sort of a thing for a present for Christmas. I put that row of lazy daisy stitch on there, and just curve them up and down, which adds an extra interest, and I'll probably be coming back with something else there. But I thought I'd get this little bit of lace on, and I'm putting it on with French knots because it's just a lovely variegated thread, and I'm actually doing 5 wraps because I want quite a big French knot. And so I'm just coming up in a space and going down with my 5 wraps, putting the French knot to the fabric at the bottom and pulling it through. Actually, I'm going to bring a bit of ribbon in. So for a ribbon rose, I actually need 5 straight stitches. So I've just put this pink in my needle. I'm going to do a decent sized one, I think, as well. Keep going back to the middle and making 5 equally spaced stitches. So I've got a point but a big eye to get this ribbon through. I want to come up from the back in the gap of one of the spokes. Once I'm on top of the fabric, the rest of the whole thing gets done on the top. And I'm going to start and just weave under and over. So I shall go over the first one, under the second one, and over and under that one. And then it really is just weaving around until you've filled up all your spokes. And I'm not bothered about how the creases go because that all adds to the petals. You just keep going round, under and over. Don't need to pull it particularly tight. As you can see, I'm getting full up here, but there's still room for me to go around, so I'm just going to find the spoke and carry on, and then I can finish it off. And I think I'm just going to lazy daisy again with the ribbon. And turn my work and take another lazy daisy, which is just taking a stitch and wrapping, coming through the loop and pulling through, and trying not to crease your fabric up in your hand, and going back to halfway. I'm going to take another little stitch and move along again. Don't pull it too tight. So I've taken another unusual fibre in quite a big needle. I've had this for ages and now it's found a purpose. So I have got quite a big needle with a really sharp point on there, and I'm just going to do single French knots along these little lazy daisy stitches that I've put on, and they're going to look like little roses, and I think that's going to look super. And this chartreuse, that's my coat. It's gone on hold at the moment while Christmas gets done, but all the pieces are cut out, which is why I can use the scraps. Well, they look like they're in a window box. And what I'll do is in each little piece going across, just going to do some little straight stitches. And I can come back and put a flower on each of them or a bead, and pretty soon you can have quite complex seam treatments, but each time you're only doing a simple thing. That one's finished as far as I want for the moment. I might put a little bead on there. Good. So I'm just slanting my needle down towards the seam, making sure I'm going through the loop and pulling it in. And I'm just trying to make them all slant in the same direction and be the same distance apart. And I do know that some people mark them, you could put a dot on so that you got them all even. For me particularly, I'm not that bothered. I'm not that bothered. I just want it to look pretty. So I've done a bit more. I've sewn a button on. Now I've done a bit of pink running stitch around it. I finished the beads. So I thought I'd put this bit in the hoop so you could see the difference. I have got a small hoop here, and that's why I left the excess fabric on, so I could do that type of a thing. And just gives me enough. I'm going to work on this part first, and now I can do some stitching here. I think I'm going to do fly stitch. I'm going to do it actually over the whole seam. I'll come up here, go down an equal distance across, I'll hold the loop, I'm going to come up on the side of the line and pull my V in, and then down with a equal size stitch across equally to the other side. Doesn't have to be equal, you can do them different sizes without any problem. Down the same length again, and pull my little fly stitch in. And I can just go straight down there and then have a row of little arrows, but I've chosen to do a bit of a long leg, so that's what I'll do, carry on doing for this bit. I'm going to come up here in the corner and I'm going to whip this ribbon, not going under the material at all, making a really lovely wiggly line. Now to put this button on, I'm going straight back down. I'm going to just running stitch around. I wanted to use this little lace overlay, and I'm just stitching it on with some purple stranded cotton in my needle. And I think once I've done this bit, I shall go and finish this off and come back to you with the actual putting together. I've finished my panel as much as I want for now. You could definitely do a lot more embroidery than I've done, but for the purposes of what I'm trying to show you, I feel I've done enough. I really like this. I've put a few buttons on, and I've put them on just with ribbon that's been double knotted. I've done the same with that one, just a bonny ribbon. I know, boo. I did more. Okay, we've got Boo on the knee now. So I did some feather stitch with ribbon and some ribbon roses. Another button's gone on. I've couched some ribbon. Whipped running stitch there. Interlaced running stitch. So my next job is to put some structure into it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold back along the lines that I marked. And I can see them on the back as well. There. And I'm going to stitch down to make sort of a strengthening rib. But it means there'll be no raw edge there. And I'm just going to do that on the machine. I could do it by hand, but I'm happy that I've done all that hand stitching, even though it's perfectly fine to do it by hand either. So I can see where I marked there. That's my stitching line here. That's the seam allowance. And then I will have my 15 centimetre, I know, boo. I have my 15 centimetre squares. I've got my box sewn together, ready to turn out. And so we can see the bag starting to come together. Just push my bag bottom corners out. And it's ready to put the lining in. So I'm going to do the lining in the same way. And I didn't put it on camera. I know I should have. So on the back of my base, I'm going to mark the seam line, and it is 1 centimetre in from the edge all the way round. And I'm just using my disappearing pen. Take my lining fabric, and I'm just going to use the selvage because I haven't had to cut it and I know that's straight. And I will pin through the corner where the drawn lines are, and I'm going to leave a little bit of a extra there just to give myself space, and then I'm going to pin at the next corner. There we are, right sides together, pin through the corner, and when I sew I'm going to start from the corner and sew along that line and stop exactly on that corner. So I'm going to keep my row edges together, sew straight down that marked line, but as I get to that mark I'm going to stop, do a tiny bit of backspace, forward, needle down on the mark, lift my foot as in the base needs to pivot round, and line those seams up again, line the edges, and put my pin into the corner to hold everything together. Just get it all flattened out, put my foot down and carry on going forward. As I come to it again, I take the pin out but hold it in right on that corner. I don't want the sewing to go past there. Pivot the base round, just get that nicely flattened out, and then press a foot down, sew forward. And this is exactly what I did with the outer bag too. I just thought it was easier to show you on this because it didn't have all the embroidery showing through. And then because I didn't sew the sides into a circle first, I now can just line those up and sew up to the top. So you can see how I had excess there, but I knew I'd cut a proper rectangle, so I can just line those up, make sure the base is out of the way, straight down to the pin, finished. I'm just going to trim this seam back with the big scissors. I'm just trimming it to about 1/4 of an inch, and I can put a little snip at each corner where the side goes around, like that, and that'll perfectly lie flat then. So that's now my lining. Fit the lining inside, wrong sides together. I'll fit that seam with the other seam there. And the next thing is to get the whole thing sewn together. But I need the loops. I'm going to use this to make the loops. And I think I need them about that big. I'll measure how much that is. That is 10 centimetres or 4 inches. So I'm going to cut 4 pieces of this tape. And I'm going to measure right into the middle of each of the sides. So 7.5, which is here. And I'm going to pin the folded up strap. I'm doing that on each side. So I'm all ironed and ready for the final piece of stitching. Definitely I could have done the right sides together and put it through the sewing machine, and I would have left a gap in the lining to turn it through. But the reason I'm preferring to do it this way is because it's one last chance to do a bit more embroidery. So what I've done is I can take that off and show you. I've ironed in my centimetre seam allowance on the lining and the centimetre seam allowance on the bag, and I've just matched everything up so it's all together, and there's no, it's just perfectly matched up. I've let them stick out by 4 centimetres almost. It was actually 1.5 inches I was measuring. I just go from one to another. It's 1.5 inches I've left them stick out. And I thought it would be nice to blanket stitch with this fine cotton pearl, but it's a lovely shade of bluey, mauvey, purpley pink. I'm just going to start from inside one of the straps, and I'm going to blanket stitch around just by going straight through, putting my thread round, and I'm going to have the blanket stitch coming right along the join. And I'm just going to hold it and go straight through around the back, and it won't actually take that long to make a really good edge all the way around. Well, I'm almost finished. I've blanket stitched all the way around the top, and there's no creases, everything's been perfectly perfect. And it just occurred to me that you might want to see how to blanket stitch through the tab, the loop, to make it nice and secure. So obviously I'm left-handed, so I'm doing the opposite way around. So blanket stitch is just really going all the way through and the loop going round, and I'm pulling so that the bar lies right along the top edge. Feel it and pull you in a bit more. So obviously as I get up to the tab, I can't put the thread around anymore. And so the way to do it, I'll take that pin out because this is my start here. The way to do it is to do the blanket stitch in 2 goes. So I'm going to just keep my thumb on there and keep that secure. My loop is in there. I'm going to go straight through to the back. You can see it's coming out in the right place, and I'm going to pull that through. And I'm just going to put my thumbnail there and keep that loop. And then come back off the lining, straight the way through, and I'm off the lining again, so you can see I'm in the edge of the green stripe there, and the edge of the green stripe there. Pull it through and pick up that loop. And then when I pull it through, I get a little straight stitch on there, which is hard to see because of the variegated thread, but I get my blanket stitch loops along the front of the bag. So I do that again. I'm going to go along and onto the green stripe, straight the way through. I'm going to use my fingernail to keep that loop, and then I'm going to come straight. I'm not even going through that again, I'm coming off it just like it would be if it was going round there, straight the way through on the edge of the green stripe, and pick up the loop. And when I pull it through, there's my blanket stitch forming along the front. There are little straight stitches on the back, but it's securing, it's right the way through the tab. And in this way, the tab is going to be secured in to the lining and the bag, and it won't come out. Right on the edge, pick up the loop, and then one on top of my starting one, just as an extra security, and pick up the loop. And that actually is my bag finished being sewn. So for the drawstrings, I thought I didn't have anything, but I was sorting my pinnies out because I made my new denim pinny. And this old pinny here, I actually cut the waist ties off and the necktie off, ready for putting that to some use. And here they are, I've just ironed them. So they are a bit marked and faded because they've been on a pinny for years, but that's what I'm going to use. So I am going to go through here all the way around, and it's a perfect colour. I think I was lucky there. Okay, make sure that it's nice and long enough. I'll put the other one in, so I won't do anything with them yet. I'll get the other one in and I'll start from this end, so the opposite end, so you can pull them together. Okay, so it actually works, which is great. I'm going to tie these in a knot. Okay, got that one in a knot first. Tie that tight. And then I'm going to thread one of these onto all of my ends. Might need, try put a bit of glue on or just tie another knot. Tie another knot. I don't want to put glue on if I don't have to. Yeah, that's quite nice. And then try and make them the same length, that's the thing. Nice and tight. Cut the end. Well, here it's finished. I've got my crazy quilt style rice bag. Make that lovely star shape along the top. And I've got the beads on the end and the pinny ties for a tape. It's got a nice blue lining, which was leftover fabric from a blouse, all nicely blanket stitched around, and the nice crazy quilt each side. And there could have been lots more stitching on there, but I'm happy with what I've done so far. I really like this. I love those little lines of little flower French knots there and the ribbon rows. You could put a present in there for Christmas, or this could be the Christmas present, because it'd be nice to hand stitch that. Well, I really enjoyed making this and I hope you will too. They're just so useful, they're just such a nice shape, and I hope you liked my slightly different style of construction. I've got some news, 2 pieces of news. The first one is yesterday I unexpectedly got offered a ticket to go to Harrogate again. The convention centre emailed me and offered me a ticket to go and see the Country Living magazine Christmas fair. It's not something I've ever been to before, but I've replied and said yes please, I'd love to go. And so they've offered me the tickets. I'm going to take my sister and we're going back to Harrogate. So expect to see a video of the Christmas show, which I think is going to be really lovely. I expect there'll be lots of expensive stuff. So I don't expect I'll come home with a haul, but I'll video it and I'll let you see, because you've all enjoyed my first visit to Harrogate. So this is Harrogate the second time around. So that's the first thing. The second thing is something I've been wanting to do for the last few weeks. I had the idea and I've just carefully had it in my mind that I was going to do. So when it seemed like the birds and the flowers were coming to a natural finish just before December, I kept thinking, what am I going to start next? And I have so many ideas of what I do want to start next. But my idea was to do a tiny video every day starting on the 1st of December. So in this house I have a very quiet Christmas, but it is a Christmas that harks back to just a simpler sort of a thing. I don't really buy presents, I make things. It is just quiet and nice, and Naomi will be home with her partner, and so expect to start and see a little video coming out for each day of Advent. And it won't be much, might only be 5 minutes. I have been filming 1 or 2 things to go in with it, so there might be the odd recipe or a walk or something like that. I'm not quite sure, and if it gets too much I'll just stop and I'll just say that's it, I've had it for the year, and then I'm going to take a little break and come back to you fresh in January. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to doing them and sharing them with you, and I hope you'll think it's lovely too. So I just want to say thank you to all the subscribers that have been joining me lately. Just everybody from the very first word go. It'll be 6 months at the beginning of December since I started my channel. I can't believe that I'm almost nearly at 5,000 subscribers. It just doesn't seem anything I would have even thought about when I posted my video in June. So thank you very much to all of you who watch and send me comments and like my videos with the thumbs up, which I can never do properly, and just carry on. And the other thing I get told about is if you put the notification bell on, you'll find out when my little videos are going to happen, and that might be important because with me going to post them from the 1st of December, you might not be looking out for them, and of course they won't be titled about sewing, so they might get lost in the ether of all the YouTube things. So that's one thing. And no, that is it. That is it. I don't have anything else to say other than watch out for the shop. It's coming, definitely is. I've got the boxes now, I've got the bags. I just have to get it all pulled together, which Naomi is helping me with, even though she lives in Berlin. We sort of Zoom call and try and get it done. And hopefully you like the bag. And I will be next seeing you on the 1st of December. Happy crafting, happy stitching. Bye from Marion's World.